The mood is defiance of the federal government. So you're going to defy any attempt by the federal government to change this. They're viewed as the enemy, right? So it's not just that black people are the enemy, the federal government is also the enemy.
Philadelphia, Mississippi, 1964. A small town in the deep South, quiet and unassuming, held a secret so dark it would shake the nation. 3 young civil rights workers arrived that summer, hoping to teach black Americans their voting rights. What awaited them was a town steeped in hatred.
In the summer of 1964, Mississippi stood at the crossroads of history. It didn't want to be there. It had no choice. For the black population, the sultry air held the fragrant promise of civil rights. For much of the white population, it was to be a summer of heated intolerance.
A hidden empire of terror, and a plan that would culminate in one of the most infamous tragedies of the civil rights era. Mississippi in 1964 was at a crossroads of history. The air was heavy, hot, and oppressive.
But we traveled the state. We might be in Natchez, we might be in Philadelphia, we might be in Hattiesburg, working violent crimes committed against citizens of Mississippi. Therefore, we were away from our homes, and we would receive threats. Snakes were placed in mailboxes.
For the state's black residents, hope hung on the promise of change. For much of the white population, it was a summer of defiance. Across the South, violence bubbled just beneath the surface. But Philadelphia would become the epicenter of a horror few could imagine. A town that wore its small-town charm like a mask, while beneath it, a storm of hatred was ready to erupt. The summer of 1964 was marked by the arrival of hundreds of young volunteers from northern universities. Their mission was clear: educate black residents about their rights and help them register to vote. But for many white Mississippians, this northern invasion was intolerable. They labeled it an attack, a threat to their way of life. Deeply rooted in segregation, Philadelphia and its surrounding areas were controlled by men whose loyalty was to the Ku Klux Klan, not the law. These men would stop at nothing to maintain the racial status quo. Among the volunteers were 3 young men: Michael Schwerner, a 24-year-old social worker from New York; James Chaney, a local young man familiar with Mississippi's dangerous landscape; and Andrew Goodman, a 20-year-old from Queens who had just completed training to join the movement. Together, they represented a northern ideal confronting southern reality, unaware of how quickly the line between activism and death could be crossed. 6 months before the students arrived, Schwerner had set up a base in Meridian, Mississippi, connecting with black communities and churches. The Mount Zion Methodist Church in Longwood became a hub for planning. But even in these safe spaces, danger lurked. Klan members attacked the church, beating parishioners and setting the building ablaze. The fire wasn't just an act of violence.
If they had turned up in jail and they were still in jail, then you had some hope. The issue was the release at a certain time of night from the jail, and then they're missing again. So that circumstance means the worst.
It was a signal. The invisible empire of the Ku Klux Klan was watching, waiting, and willing to act with lethal force. Despite warnings, the 3 men pressed forward. They traveled to Longwood to meet with church members, aware that every mile on the road could bring confrontation. Their instructions were clear: stay on main roads, avoid unnecessary risks, and always check in with their headquarters. But on June 21, 1964, their plans unraveled. After a brief stop in Longwood, they were pulled over by local law enforcement. Deputy Cecil Price detained them under false pretenses. Instead of a routine encounter, it was the first step in a meticulously planned trap. Released late at night, the 3 men vanished. The FBI, alerted immediately, suspected the worst. They had been handed over to the Klan. In a town where law enforcement and vigilante terror were intertwined, hope for their survival dwindled quickly. While rumors claimed it was a publicity stunt, the evidence was growing undeniable. Their car would soon be found, abandoned and burned in a swamp, the metal charred, the fire a cruel attempt to erase all traces.
It
It was obvious from the beginning that we weren't leaving until the bodies were located. Mr. Hoover wouldn't have countenanced that, and for that matter, neither would the general public. We were going to find those bodies if it took forever.
Nearby, a watch and car keys hinted at the human lives that had vanished into the night. The investigation was monumental. FBI agents, once few in number, were soon reinforced by more than 100 personnel and volunteers, combing through the woods, dragging rivers, and knocking on doors. Many locals remained silent, fearful of the Klan's reach. Yet cracks in the wall of terror began to appear. Some townspeople, motivated by conscience, started sharing information. Others, witnessing the devastation of the summer, burned homes, destroyed churches, and lives upended, realized that violence could not remain unchecked. Clues slowly emerged. A young man, previously targeted by the Klan, described being beaten and threatened.
In the middle of the night, I saw lives being lost for no reason whatsoever, by a group that felt they were right.
Giving investigators insight into the methods the group used to control and intimidate the community. Informants, still anonymous, began pointing toward Old Jolly Farm, a property owned by one of the county's wealthiest men. It was there that the Klan had buried their victims, hoping to conceal the evidence beneath a dam still under construction.
After we finished our social chat, I said, "Are you going to be able to tell me anything significant tonight?" And he said, "I think I can tell you where the bodies are buried." And I said, "Tell me where."
The FBI moved with caution, knowing that any misstep could alert the perpetrators and erase the last traces of the crime. By early August, excavation began. Heavy machinery was used to remove layers of earth, then replaced with careful manual digging as the smell of decay intensified in the Mississippi heat. The first body surfaced, Michael Schwerner, identified through his personal belongings. Soon after, Andrew Goodman and James Chaney were discovered. The brutality was staggering. The three men had been shot, each at close range. Evidence suggested that at least one victim had been alive when buried, a chilling indication of the sadistic precision of the murderers. For the FBI, the crime scene confirmed what they had suspected. The Klan, under the command of Imperial Wizard Sam Bowers, had orchestrated the murders with military-like coordination. Deputy Price, Sheriff Lawrence Rainey, and other local officials had either facilitated or turned a blind eye to the operation. This was not an isolated act of hatred but part of a larger campaign to suppress civil rights through terror and intimidation. The discovery of the bodies was a turning point. Public opinion shifted as the reality of the murders became undeniable. Even some in the white community recognized that the violence had gone too far. Informants emerged, providing names, events, and confessions that painted a full picture of the crime. Through painstaking investigation, the FBI mapped the night of June 21st in meticulous detail, reconstructing how the three men had been detained, transferred, executed, and buried, all under the watchful eyes of local authorities complicit in the acts. Legal action followed, but justice was slow and partial. The state of Mississippi proved reluctant to pursue murder charges. Instead, federal authorities charged men with civil rights violations, a lesser but symbolically significant step. Trials dragged on, with juries struggling against the entrenched local sentiment. In 1967, after years of delay, 8 men were convicted for their roles in the conspiracy, including Bowers and Price. The sentences were light compared to the enormity of the crime. The harshest, 10 years for Bowers, 6 for Price. Many others involved never faced state prosecution, and the full measure of justice was never realized. Yet the story of Mississippi burning was more than a tragedy. It was a turning point. The brutality of these murders galvanized the civil rights movement, drawing attention to the systemic violence in the South. Mount Zion Church, rebuilt with donations, became a symbol of resilience, a shrine to the courage of those who fought for justice despite the mortal risks. The 3 men who came hoping to change the world, Schwerner, Goodman, and Chaney, did so in ways they could never have anticipated. Their deaths exposed the cruel machinery of oppression, forcing the nation to confront the depths of hatred and the urgent need for reform. Mississippi itself began a slow transformation. Once a state that openly defied federal law and upheld segregation, it gradually integrated into the broader currents of the nation. The shadows of the Klan's invisible empire were never fully erased, but the courage of a few brave individuals and the relentless pursuit of justice left an indelible mark. The story of Philadelphia, Mississippi, reminds us that even in the darkest corners, the fight for human dignity can illuminate a path forward. The summer of 1964 left scars on the land, the communities, and the nation, but it also sparked change. From the fires of Mount Zion to the dam where 3 young men were buried, the events of Mississippi burning remain a testament to courage, sacrifice, and the painful truth that freedom often comes at a cost. History remembers what happened, and though justice came in half measures, the legacy of Schwerner, Goodman, and Cheney continues to inspire those who stand against hatred and violence, reminding us that the fight for equality is never finished.